What's up, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy. Hope you guys are all doing well. Thank you so much for taking the time to check out my video, and thanks so much if you just subscribe to me, you watch me, you leave me really nice comments that make me really happy. I get really excited when you guys comment. You guys like make me really happy, so thank you so much if you do any of those things. If you pay attention to me at all, thank you. I appreciate it. So today we're going to be doing a video that I'm not gonna lie, if I had been in a different mindset than I was before, the same mindset that I was before, I would not have filmed this video, but I had a change of heart recently on something that I was very verbal about in my videos, talking about the best decks in Modern and stuff like that, and I wanted to do a video addressing it because I had a very interesting, thing happen to me. So I was actually going to be doing a video talking all about the quote-unquote top decks in Modern, and I was going to do probably like a top 10 list and go through and explain why these were considered like the best decks in Modern. And I, was playing Bloom Titan, and I was saying that this was the best deck by far, and I felt like when I was saying that I was like discrediting other decks, and I really didn't like that, and I really don't like how I came across, because I feel like I sounded very like elitist, like, man, I'm playing Bloom Titan, I'm playing the best deck in Modern, and if you're not playing Bloom, well, and I didn't like how I was coming across like that, and I started thinking about it like, wow, that was a really negative sort of approach to have, and a very like narrow-minded one too, and it's not at all that I was discrediting decks, that wasn't my view on it. I was just under the impression that my deck, the deck that I was playing, was just really good and doing very powerful and very strong things. And I'm going to be doing a video addressing today why I think it's not a good thing to say, that you're playing the best deck, or to say that they're even considered top decks in Modern. So basically the reasons why are, the first reason I would say I think it's a really bad thing to say, these are the best decks in Modern and things like that, is because it really does depend on your local game store, the meta there, and what you're playing and what other people are playing in terms of matchups and things like that. So for example, one of my friends is also playing Bloom right now, and I said that I was talking to him around the time that I was playing Bloom, and he was like, oh, I think I'm going to take it apart and build Grixis Control. I have absolutely nothing against Grixis Control. It's actually one of my favorite decks in the format. I really like it a lot, and I was like, don't take that apart. I was like, don't take apart Bloom. It's the best deck in Modern. And I was like, why would you want to do that? I was like, don't. And he's like, well, Grixis Control would just work better for me in my meta, in my local game store. And again, if I was thinking about it a week ago, I would have been like, bro, don't build Grixis Control, stick with Bloom. And now I'm like, wow, I was like, if you want to play that deck, I was like, play whatever deck you want. So I think that it really does depend, like, the place where you go. So for example, I did a video talking about how I went to a tournament on Sunday, and I did not do well at all, and I had 5 games that were really bad matchups for me. And you could say, well, Tracy, you're playing Bloom, that's one of the top decks, but you didn't do well. So like, how can you say that this is the best deck if it doesn't do well all the time? That is just so not realistic at all, to say that if you're playing the best deck, you're gonna win all the time. There's so many factors that go into that, about why, a deck would not perform well. The thing is that all decks have good and they have bad matchups. You can be playing the quote-unquote deck that you think is absolutely fantastic. You're not gonna win every game. There's just no way. There's so many things that go into games of Magic than just your deck. So that's a really big factor. Sometimes the best decks don't, like, my boyfriend Zane also has Bloom Titan, which is really funny actually, is we were texting last night, and he has a really sweet Esper tokens list, which is really cool. It runs Monastery Mentor, and it's really cool. And so I decided like a couple days ago to rebuild Black-White tokens. So I took apart Bloom, and he texted me last night, and he's like, I'm gonna put back together Esper tokens. And I was like, thinking about it, like, saying, like, I just took apart Bloom, and now you're gonna rebuild your tokens deck. I was like, this is weird. I was like, what made you want to decide this? And he's like, well, I really want to run the new Jace. And I was like, yeah, man, that's like a really cool choice, and your Jace is really sweet. And I just thought it was really funny how he's pretty frustrated with Bloom too, because it's not performing well for him either. And so yeah, you can be running a really good deck and you just don't do well. And at the same time, you know, sometimes those sort of unconventional decks and things like that get there. Like, I remember I was playing this one game where I was playing against this guy's deck. I don't even know what this deck would be. It was like Black Devotion in Modern. So not popular at all. You know, it's not something that people really run. It's not very popular. And I was not drawing well, and he just did a lot of damage to me. And like, even, I mean, if I could put stuff on the board, I mean, that was a game where I cast we played 2 games, I cast a total of like 2 spells in those entire 2 games. That was really fun. No, it wasn't. So yeah, if you're running this sort of like unconventional kind of deck, you know, you can still win, you can still do really well. So if you're not playing the best deck, like, you can still do well in Magic. So another thing that I found really difficult, and when I was thinking about, when I was planning on doing that video on the top 10 decks in Modern, I was like, it's a really hard thing to rank decks in front of each other. It's really hard for people to say, like, oh, Affinity is better than Splinter Twin. Like, they're 2 completely different decks. Are you gonna sit there and compare Arcbound Ravager and Deceiver Exart? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So I think that's another really big flaw in, I think, saying what, you know, what decks, you know, are really good, because decks are just different and they're good in their own ways. So I think, like, comparing cards in them and stuff like that, comparing decks, I feel like does not make too much sense. I think comparing variations of decks makes sense. Like, if you're, for example, Splinter Twin has a bunch of variations. There's Jeskai, there's Grixis, there's Blue-Red, there's totally another one, there's a Teamer Twin. So there's a bunch of different variations of Twin. I think comparing those makes sense. But, like, comparing 2 very, very different decks, comparing 2 very different, like, styles of playing, like aggro or control, I don't really think that makes too much sense, because they're just different and they're trying to do different things. Control decks are trying to counter your stuff, and aggro decks are trying to smack you in the face. I don't understand how you can put those side by side. It really doesn't, you know, I don't think that makes too much sense, at least for me. So I think another thing too is that certain decks are going to do better in the meta at other times, and a really good example of this is a lot of decks will just kind of come out of nowhere, really, like, and people just won't even pay attention to them. So one of my favorite examples of this is, I've talked about this a couple times, but there's this really awesome Sultai control list by this really cool dude named Gerard Fabiano, who actually got first place at GP Baltimore, and people were like, that deck is going to be bad, and he got first place. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you cannot play this, you know, you could say, I'm not going to play this traditional, you know, deck, and still win. So it's like, how do you look at a deck like that? It's like, oh, well, you're not playing, like, Grixis control, you're not playing, like, blue-white control or whatever, but you just top 8, you get first place at a GP. Like, you know, and people would, you know, if you're playing the best deck, then the best deck would always win. If you think that Splinter Twin is the best deck in Modern, Splinter Twin doesn't get first place every time, so it's like, saying something like that doesn't really, you know, make too much sense. And Modern is just, it's always changing, really. I think, you know, new decks are coming out and stuff like that, and I feel like a lot of times, too, unconventional decks don't really, you know, get places in when people talk about best decks, they don't talk about those decks. So, like, everyone is really easy to say Splinter Twin is a good deck because it's reputable and people know what it does and people have seen that this is a good deck in Modern, but people don't talk about those unconventional decks. For example, Sultai Control. When you talk about control decks in Modern, people won't bring up Sultai. And they should, because it's a sweet deck, but no one plays it. And people are just so hesitant to, like, give decks like that a chance. Another really good example is Elves. Has just kind of, I feel like, really just gotten a lot of attention recently because Mike Malone got first place at GP Oakland, I think it was, and people weren't really paying attention too much to Elves, and they were like, oh wow, this guy just got first place. So are you gonna sit there and be like, wow, man, like, he's playing Elves and he got first place, you know, like, how good is his deck, you know what I mean? So, I think a really big thing is that, you know, people are playing decks based on what they think is good. And one last factor I want to talk to you guys about is I really do think that it depends on the person piloting the deck, which is something that makes it so good. So, for example, I feel like I see this a lot in draft, for example. Like, a lot of people will be like, those cards are bad, and then someone will draft them and do really well with them. So I think it depends on how, you know, it depends a lot on you as a player. Good players can take quote-unquote bad decks and make them good. For example, so my boyfriend Zane is drafting one time Origins and drafts that, oh my gosh, is it that 1/6 or the 2/6 vanilla for like 5 mana or something in Origins? I don't remember which one it is, but he's drafting this card and that card looks really not that good. He drafted like 5 of them and like placed like 3-1. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, can you really sit there and be like his deck was bad, you know? And it's just such a, I feel like that just isn't really that clear. Like, a lot of Magic players can make, you know, decisions and say like, this card is really not that good, but like, a lot of times people can make bad cards good. Like, there's some cards that are just bad. Like, there's just cards that are just not good, they don't do anything, things like that. But like, there's other cards that just, you know, may look bad, and the person piloting the deck, the center deck could just synergize so well and it could just work. So I'm going to do a whole video talking about homebrew decks and experimentation in a format like Modern and how people are really scared about that and people are really hesitant about that, and because the deck, you know, the decks aren't well known, and I think that this ties into a couple of these points. But yeah, I mean, I think that my whole thing is just to be kind of more open-minded and stuff, and like, you know, I'm not going to go out and really like say that too much, you know, and I think that, you know, decks are just, there's just so much that goes into it. There's so much that goes into, you know, playing Magic and winning with decks and like doing well. So I don't think it's not as easy as saying this deck is good and this deck is bad. I think it's just, there's so much more to that, and I think it's way more complex than I think people give it credit for. So yeah guys, that's it. Hope you guys take it easy, enjoy the rest of your day/night, and don't think there's anything else I was gonna say. Don't think so. No random things that I can tell you guys at the end of this video. Let me see if I can think of something eventful for my day. I don't really know. I like, I had a really, so I'm a tutor. I've been a tutor for the past couple semesters, and I had a good session today with, I have 2 students, I have double sessions, so I work with 2 students, instead of like doing one-on-one sessions. So, I'm working with a class right now, and I have these 2 students, they're very quiet, and normally that hour goes by really slow because they're both very quiet and I have to kind of encourage them to talk, but today they were really good, so that made me really happy. And I love my kids, they're great. I call them my kids, like students, they're like freshmen and I'm a senior, so they're not really like that much younger than me, but like I'm gonna be a teacher, so I'm constantly like, my kids, my students, and I'm like, they're really not, they're just people that I'm tutoring, but I just say that like naturally. Oh gosh, anything else? Yeah, so Zane's building Esper tokens. I'm really excited for that. I'm not gonna lie, once he said that, I was like thinking, are you building tokens again? Because I'm building tokens. He said to me when we were both playing Bloom, he's like, I want us both to get really good at Bloom and like win things and go to like GPs and do really well, and we'll be like the dynamic duo who plays Bloom Titan. And I was like, yeah, that'd be really cool. And then both of us just took it apart. He's all like, yeah, I'm gonna take the deck apart, and like I was like, are you gonna like sell it or get rid of it? He's like, no, he's like, I'm gonna keep it, but you know, he's not probably looking to, I don't know what he's gonna do with it. Like he changes his mind a lot and stuff. With Modern decks and decks just kind of in general, so. Okay, that's it. Talk to you guys later. Bye.